Nigeria has to be very much aware of its example to other countries. The seriousness of the conflict in the northeast has come to such a stage that it has created attention internationally. Whatever happens after the next elections, we don't see that there will be dramatic changes which will affect our bilateral relations. If Nigeria fails, it will be a very, very bad signal for the rest of the continent.
You're watching Rootstv Nigeria, and this is Know Your Ambassador. Today we are talking with the Norwegian Ambassador to Nigeria in the person of Kjemprud. Today we'll be discussing the Nigerian bilateral relations with Norway, where both countries are benefiting from each other, and other related issues. Okay, so let's talk about the nature of Nigeria's bilateral relations with Norway. What are both countries benefiting from each other?
I think it has to be defined in a broad set of terms. Okay. We have very long-standing bilateral trade relations dating back to the 1890s, where stockfish exports from Norway is an important ingredient of our trade for such a long time, and it's still very important as part of the traditional food for many Nigerians. So trade is very important, and since the start of the oil the oil industry was developed in Nigeria. Norwegian companies have been part of that, and today we have 70 companies working in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, which is a substantial number of companies and a big trade. And when we talk about the common benefits, it's about how to for Nigeria to develop its oil sector, continue developing and using the local content laws to gradually have the technology transfer to run the business on without the big oil internationals.
Amazing. We're going to be breaking it down into various sectors of, how Nigeria and Norway are benefiting from each other. But you talked about oil and gas, and the beautiful thing is that we have that in common. 20% of your GDPs, contributed from the oil and gas sector, and you just said you have about 70 companies in our own oil and gas sector. I want to find out more how Norway can help Nigeria, or how Nigeria can benefit from Norway's ability to manage its oil and gas sector so effectively.
I'm very happy about that question, because I think with the resources Nigeria has, it's possible to develop the sector for more people to benefit from it. It's not possible to compare our two countries. We have a population of a little bit more than 5 million. Nigeria has 200 million. And we produce more or less the same amount of oil. So of course it's much more important to our economy than to Nigeria's economy, and the per capita benefit is much bigger. But I think when it comes to the management of the sector and to serve the national interest, I think Nigeria can learn a lot from the experience of Norway, where we had no experience when we started the oil sector. We developed our management systems, our laws and regulations and taxing system to benefit Norway from the oil sector to a much bigger extent than Nigeria has been able to do. And I think that's an area where we where Nigeria could learn from our experiences, and which we will be willing to share and see how you could build up an administration which could really benefit the population of Nigeria to a greater extent than today.
Norway is one of the most prosperous countries in the world. I mean, your per capita GDP is like one of the highest in the world. But you are in Nigeria, and you already know that our economy is seriously struggling. So I have been studying a bit about Norway and what you have been doing in Nigeria. What are some examples of the things you are doing, not just what you've done, but you are doing at the moment to help Nigeria's struggling economy?
No, I think that true developing the oil sector is good, but then you have to administer it and manage it in a proper way, and to benefit the population to a larger extent, as I said. But also, I mean, I think I have to say that in addition to the oil in Norway, we have a tax system which is based on so many duties and regulations for people, and you have to Nigeria, in my opinion, has to do something with the tax administration. Nigeria's percentage of tax to GDP is approximately 5%. The sub-Saharan Africa is approximately 19%, which means that there's so much with a huge population. You could really benefit from a better tax administration. That's an area where we would like to cooperate and share our experience with Nigeria to fill in the policies of the government for increasing the tax base, but also in the diversification of the economy, which is quite important, getting the agriculture sector going, processing industry and so on. And one of my most important issues, which you might come back to, how to have an energy power sector which is functioning well.
Because that was exactly where I was going to next. Looking at Norway, studying Norway, you have actually done pretty well in your power sector, especially hydropower. So quite recently I read that you distributed, fuel efficient stoves to a lot of people in the northeastern part of Nigeria. So in which ways can you help our power sector? You have started, and this is a two-pronged question. Why fuel efficient stoves, and then which other ways can you help?
No, I think that these stoves more are environmental contribution to stop deforestation, rather than solving the big energy problems. But Nigeria still has a potential to develop the hydropower sector. Nigeria has a big potential when it comes to solar power. The solar power industry has to be given incentives rather than disincentives. And you have a huge capacity through the gas production in the country to improve power generation. Because you can probably hear here the generator is running. Nigeria manufacturing will never be competitive if you have to run it on generated power. So the power sector is what we believe so important. As you said, we produce 90% of our power from hydropower, but we are still developing other for an energy mix with other components like solar power, wave power, wind power, and so on. So we believe Nigeria has to really introduce a policy and implement a policy to solve the whole power sector for resolving the economy.
You have 70 oil companies in Nigeria. Do you have any power company in Nigeria at all?
We have a number of Norwegian power companies who are interested and who have been looking into the possibilities in the market, from hydropower to different other alternatives. We have a wind power company also active, but there has to be real incentives and an overall power strategy to change the power sector in Nigeria.
You've talked about the fact that you export stockfish to us and talked about trade. So I would like to understand more the things that you export to Nigeria beyond just stockfish, and then the things that you import from Nigeria.
Yes, we are, as you said initially, we are both oil producing countries, so we don't trade in oil. We shouldn't be trading in oil, although we do buy some oil from Nigeria, and we do sell some refined products. But Nigeria should also, in addition to the power sector which I mentioned, I think it's very important also that Nigeria gets a refinery capacity because just exporting the raw materials and importing the refined materials doesn't benefit the economy. So, but when it comes to trade, it's a little bit unbalanced between our two countries. Although we mainly are, I mean, apart from stockfish, we are actively in shipping in Nigeria. Shipbuilding, there's a number of companies who buy ships in Norway. So trade is unbalanced. We are looking into different sectors where we can more balance the trade between the two countries. We believe the fishery sector and agricultural sector could contribute to exports from Nigeria to Norway.
So at the moment you're not really importing anything from Nigeria?
We are importing some fish like lobster, langoust and the jumbo prawns, which finds a good price in the Norwegian market. Yes. But we would like to see others. And coming back to the power sector, if you had a proper textile industry, which Nigeria used to have, you go through Kaduna and you see all the old textile factories. With a well-functioning power sector, the industrialization of Nigeria could start taking place again, and Nigeria could be an exporting country.
You have done pretty well in Norway to, I wouldn't use the word curb corruption, but you seem to have a system where you're able to account for practically everything, and it has helped your economy. Now, you've been in Nigeria for 2.5 years. This is not news to you. I mean, I'm sure you have seen a lot of situations where corruption played a role. Now, with your experience and what your country has been able to do to ensure there's very little or no corruption in your system, how can you help us fix these issues? The current administration is working hard to, curb corruption. So where do you come in this?
We have been very supportive of the Buhari administration's fight against corruption. Both the former EFCC chairman, Nuhu Ribadu, who won a prize just recently, and the current EFCC chairman is part of an anti-corruption network which has been established in Norway. So we work with these institutions to try to help increasing their capacity and ability to lead the campaign against corruption. But corruption is also a two-way thing. I mean, there's some people who pay and some people who receive, and so we have to be very careful about finding the right balance of making sure that our own companies are not part of any corrupt practices, and we have to advise them to come here with good intentions and with long-term perspectives to make them good counterparts for Nigeria.
Have you had situations where your Norwegian companies have had to deal with issues of corruption, and how did they handle it?
I believe that if any Norwegian company was part of any corrupt practices, the last they would tell about this was coming to me and tell me about it.
But of course, you've got your eyes and ears.
So they would probably first come if they were in really deep problems in the courts and so on. So we haven't had any cases with Norwegian companies being part of corruption or ending up in the wrong situation so far. But we are making a lot of efforts in making sure and in the dialogue with our companies that they should take care and be doing the right practices in this field.
You said you've been to over 20 states in Nigeria.
Well, I've been close to around 20 states, yes, and I have an ambition to visit all 36 states.
That would be fantastic.
But it takes a while. So, but I still have a few years to go.
So you probably would do that. And you would agree with me that one of Nigeria's greatest resources is human capital. I'm sure you've met a lot of young people who are very vibrant, very, permit me, I have to say that myself because we know that's one of our resources. Now, having met them, in which ways do you think that Norway and Nigeria can partner in terms of human capital development?
No, I've been, as you said, been to a number of states, and also had a privilege to discuss with the Minister of Education. There is an enormous gap in the Nigerian educational sector. I mean, from primary schools to the university, you see sort of you have more universities, but you don't have the. I mean, 20 years ago, Ibadan University was probably one of the best universities on the continent, but there's a difficulty in maintaining the high level of standards of all your universities when you expand it to such a high number of universities. But as you say, I mean, what struck me from before coming here and from working with Nigeria as a desk officer in the 90s is the brilliance and the capacity of Nigerians. I'm told that Nigerians are the most brilliant people coming out of a university in the US of diaspora group. So what is needed is the link between the brilliance of Nigerians, the highly educated Nigerians, and the organizational capacity of organizations, political parties, and to channel this into long-term plans and the benefit of the nation.
Mm-hmm. So, still on the question though, how can Norway help? Because this is leading to my other question, which is what a lot of people who are watching the show would probably be interested in. Are there opportunities for Nigerians to live, work, study in Norway, and how can they access that?
No, it's basically we have a priority for postgraduate studies in Norway, but we also have some programs. For example, a program for since we are very active in the oil sector, we have a program for oil engineers to come to Norway to study, to prepare them to move into the Nigerian oil industry. I mentioned the local content is very important for the oil industry in Nigeria. We have just got a new honorary consul in Lagos who is prominent in promoting the local content in Nigerian business. So we are looking forward to this program to increase the possibilities of coming to Norway, but we also have, as I said, a more general program of benefiting Nigerians for postgraduate studies. We have a huge program with UNICEF on primary education, with especially for the Northeast, but also for other areas. And we are looking into ways of through general UN and funding for the educational sector, because it's so important also to have I mean, you have so many good private schools in Nigeria, but you also need to have the ground or the basic public schooling to be functional and efficient. Yes.
Okay, it's quite interesting that you have channeled a lot of your attention to the Northeast. One of the prominent problems of not just the Northeast is Boko Haram, having been ravaged by this terror group for more than 10 years. That place is really suffering economically. Now, both in the terms of both Northeast and Nigeria as a whole, how can Norway help this country deal with its security problems, mostly that posed by Boko Haram?
It has been going on for nearly 10 years, as you said. In the last few years, we have taken a lot of attention to it, and we hosted the Oslo conference, humanitarian conference for the Lake Chad region, with emphasis on Boko Haram and the Northeast. And we co-hosted the Berlin conference this autumn. So, but that's about having attention to Nigeria for all the wrong reasons. I mean, Nigeria is a middle-income country. It has always managed to resolve its conflicts more or less on its own without the international community. So it's a completely new situation that the seriousness of the conflict in the northeast has come to such a stage that it has created attention internationally. I've been discussing this with a number of academicians and politicians, and saying that you have to do your utmost to resolve these issues before it actually, I mean, when Nigeria, the situation in the northeast is compared with Central African Republic, with Somalia, with South Sudan, Nigeria has a serious problem. So I think the military offensive will not be sufficient in itself. I think there has to be a negotiated solution. There has to be negotiations with the different groups if you're going to resolve this. And you have to look into the stabilization efforts coming after a conflict. And you have to see all this you have to work on all this at the same time. I wish Norway has been trying to contribute to resolving conflicts in a number of places in the world. We would be available, but it's about the government's will and commitment to find a solution to the conflicts, and it's not only militarily.
Talking about the government, what's your relationship like with the present administration, and do you worry that if this administration changes come 2019 that it could affect your relations with Nigeria?
We believe we have very good relations with the present administration. We don't define it bilateral relations really. We define it as with this or the other administration. So whatever administration, we will try to establish as best relation as we can. We have, as I said, long-term relations which has been very solid. We are at the UN. We are always sitting next to each other, so we have a lot of contacts. We are all. This kind of relations sometimes change if there are dramatic changes politically. But whatever happens after the next elections, we don't see that there will be dramatic changes which will affect our bilateral relations.
It's good you brought the elections. You've been here for 2.5 years, and I don't think you've ever experienced any Nigerian election, have you?
I have not been here during elections.
Will you be here during the elections?
I will be here during the elections.
Fantastic.
Definitely.
So let's talk about the Nigerian elections in 2019. I mean, in which ways do you think Norway can lend support to Nigeria in this situation? Because a lot of international attention is on Nigeria come 2019 for these elections. It means a lot. Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa in general. So in which ways can Norway, or will Norway, provide support?
I think the electoral board, the INEC, will be key to the administration of the elections, that it's going to be a free and fair election. So we had the privilege of having the chairman of the electoral board and a number of members of the electoral board to observe the last Norwegian elections, which was a little bit more than 1 year ago. So we think that by having an efficient electoral board, by having the efficient electoral observers from both the parties, from the civil society and so on, the conduct of the elections, and with the National Peace Committee now having a code of conduct being signed by the political actors, we have been supporting this by, as I said, the electoral chairman of the Electoral Commission coming to Norway. We do support elections through the UNDP as a funding channel. And we support the National Electoral Commission, the National Peace Committee, and other civil society organizations in their role. Then you have the political part, and that's the expectation from the international community. And in particular, as to the role Nigeria as an example it will play to other countries in Western Africa and in Africa as a whole. If Nigeria fails, it will be a very, very bad signal for the rest of the continent. So, I mean, my main point is that Nigeria has to be very much aware of its example to other countries, and therefore it's so important that the elections are free, fair, that you have the same acceptance of the results as during the last elections, and I expect that to happen.
Almost rounding things up, you've been here for 2.5 years. What do you miss most about your country?
Well, I miss my family. I don't bring my family here, but no, I mean, this is my work. This is where I live. I really enjoy it, and I meet
what do you find most
people.
Interesting about this country?
No, I mean, meeting people, traveling, meeting people, trying to understand, and the discussions you have with people in this country. It's incredible. I really enjoy it.
Do you eat our food? Have you tried your hands on some Nigerian cuisine?
Of course, I have to try all these the staple food. Stockfish is an important component. The soya, I mean, the jollof rice, and so on. So yeah, you have to eat like a Nigerian when you are in Nigeria.
To round this up, what are your thoughts about our jollof rice? Because it's an international export. It's our international dish. What do you think about Nigeria's jollof rice?
No, I think it's delicious. It's really nice. It's a competition between other countries in the region, but of course the best is in Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Jens, for talking to us. It's been awesome talking to you. All right, you've been watching Know Your Ambassador, and we have been talking with the Norwegian Ambassador Jens Kjemprud.
Thank you.
And we've been talking about the bilateral relations between Nigeria and Norway. And you have heard a whole lot of things, especially opportunities that are available to Nigerians in Norway, and in so many ways that Norway plans to work with Nigeria and is working with Nigeria. You've been watching Rootstv Nigeria. My name is Gloria Oji Emodi. Stay with us.